Good evening to you, Africa. Greetings to every heart, every household, every cultivator of the soil, every laborer, and every figure of authority listening now, whether you are in the vibrant cities or the peaceful countryside. Tonight, I bring you not just another headline, but a turning point in our shared journey. A moment so thick with historical irony, so heavy with the echoes of bygone centuries, that even the most experienced commentators on global affairs find it hard to fathom. The words I am about to speak would have seemed unimaginable 10 years ago, yet this is our reality now. France, the very same France that once governed our commerce, controlled our money, dictated our decisions, and even shaped our aspirations, has arrived in Burkina Faso, not to command, but to appeal. They come before Captain Ibrahim, requesting partnership in an avocado export agreement valued at 100 million United States dollars. Let that truth linger in your mind. France, once the colonial master whose reach cast darkness across our lands, now stands humbly at the threshold of Ouagadougou. They are seeking inclusion at the table of wealth and opportunity, a table built by the hands of the Burkina Faso people themselves. This is not simply about fruit, but about influence. It is about the direction of history reversing. The pursuer becomes the pursued. The former ruler finds himself outside the gates of the servant, seeking entry, pleading for approval, searching for a lifeline. The message contained in this event is as powerful as it is clear. For generations, farmers in Burkina Faso were told their earth was inferior to the plantations of Latin America. They were led to believe that tropical treasures like avocados belonged to others, that Africa's destiny was only to provide raw resources, never the final produce. For the elite tables of Paris, policy and crafty interference steers us toward the crops the West demanded, while our own needs were cast aside. But now, we witness France itself offering $100 million for access to the very harvest they once disregarded. This is no ordinary commercial agreement. This is a shockwave through the political order. The old colonial ground is quaking, and tremors are being registered in every European seat of power. The sight of French dignitaries arriving in Ouagadougou, masking unease behind diplomatic smiles, shaking hands with the leader they once sought to weaken, is not simply a scene of international courtesy. It is the undoing of centuries-long inequality. The world observes and knows this moment is about more than avocados. This is Africa stepping forward to claim its rightful place among the world's economic powers. Understand, this turning point did not emerge from nowhere. It is the result of deliberate years of policy favoring those who till the land, of leadership steadfast against the West's cunning strategies. From the moment Captain Ibrahim took charge, he declared, Burkina Faso would not trade away its honor for empty aid or shallow pledges. Instead, he concentrated on developing skills and resources, modern irrigation, seed reserves managed locally, collectives of farmers, and facilities to process crops. What was once a faltering farming sector has become a giant, feeding not only Africa but the wider world. And the plan succeeded. Our avocados are now prized for their flavor, their robustness, their excellence. They flourish in harmony with our environment, cared for by those who know every leaf, every flower, every yield. These are crops born of wisdom handed down through the ages, fused with state-of-the-art practices, and now they have captured global attention. But you may wonder, why is France so anxious today? The explanation is rooted in their own turmoil. Shifts in the climate have shaken the supply chains of Latin America, the region upon which France has long relied for its avocado needs. Mounting friction with certain South American suppliers has driven costs up and made agreements more uncertain. Meanwhile, the appetite of French consumers for avocado toast and guacamole has soared to unprecedented levels. From the grandest Michelin-starred kitchens to the simplest eateries, the French food world is quietly on edge. When supplies falter, prices will skyrocket, store shelves will be stripped bare, and the political fallout will be immense. That is when they look to us. But let us be clear, this is no longer the Burkina Faso of the 1960s or the Burkina Faso of the 1990s. Today, this country stands tall with alternatives, partners, and the confidence to sit at the table as equals. France can no longer arrive wielding the same tactics of subtle intimidation and financial manipulation. The days of dangling development aid as if we are desperate have ended. If they want to engage, it will require true partnership. Otherwise, they will depart empty-handed. Let there be no confusion. Burkina Faso has other suitors waiting at the door. China, the Middle East, and more. Leading economies in Asia have already shown a keen appetite for vast shipments of avocados. Some are prepared to pledge more than 100 million, alongside offers to invest in our infrastructure and share technology. France now finds itself not just in talks, but in fierce competition, vying for the trust, the business, and the loyalty of a nation they used to consider theirs by default. That era is firmly behind us. Across Ouagadougou's bustling markets, in the villages of Koudougou and Bobo-Dioulasso, across the lush fields of the Cascades, one question rings out. Will France finally show us the respect we deserve? Will they meet our demands, or will they resort once again to deception? There is hope in the air, but it is tempered with vigilance. We have been schooled by the past. We know that friendly gestures can conceal perilous agreements. This time, the people insist on clarity. This time, we set the terms. Our expectations are non-negotiable. Farmers must benefit directly, processing facilities must remain under our control, jobs in transportation and storage must belong to our citizens, and all payments must be made in our sovereign currency, no longer shackled by the colonial CFA franc. There must be no loopholes, no exploitation, no surrender of our independence. These stipulations are unsettling for officials in Paris, who are unaccustomed to being told how to proceed by African negotiators. Yet discomfort is the cost of real progress. If they desire our avocados, they must accept that the era of issuing commands has ended. Now begins the era of making requests. As I speak tonight, the negotiation teams remain in Ouagadougou. The French delegation is reportedly examining the newest version of the contract, which contains provisions never before seen in African trade deals. These include protections for our farmers against abrupt price crashes, safeguards to prevent foreign takeovers of our processing plants, and the right for Burkina Faso to prioritize African buyers during shortages. This agreement is more than just a trade document. It is a declaration of sovereignty, wrapped in commercial language. Should France sign, the consequences will echo far beyond avocados, establishing a benchmark for other African countries to follow. It will prove we no longer have to accept whatever is offered. We can set our own conditions and still attract global business. This will usher in a new age, one where African produce commands respect and proper compensation. So as you listen tonight, recognize that what is happening is far more than a simple economic deal. It is a lesson in empowerment, dignity, and the relentless turning of history's wheel. France may have come for avocados, but if they depart with anything at all, it will be the realization that Africa is now awake and will never again be lulled into slumber. You are tuned in to Taco Africa 360, your destination for in-depth news, sharp analysis, and thoughtful commentary. If you appreciate nuanced perspectives and reporting grounded in facts, do not forget to like, subscribe, and activate notifications so you never miss an update. All content on this channel is based on trustworthy public sources and respected online information and is provided strictly for educational and analytical purposes. We do not advocate or support political violence, hate speech, or discrimination in any form. Our mission is to enlighten, never to provoke. Thank you for joining us. Let us continue to seek knowledge together. In rural communities, village elders speak with hope of a new beginning. In bustling cities, young activists form movements to safeguard the hard-won victories of this alliance. Farmers look forward to adopting advanced tools and methods, finally breaking free from the relentless pattern of poor harvests. Educators gear up to infuse classrooms with innovative technologies, while entrepreneurs dream of ventures that will stretch across the continent. The atmosphere is vibrant and contagious. At the same time, within Western policy circles, experts are quietly voicing a once unimaginable idea. Africa, so long positioned as a mere pawn on the geopolitical board, could now be stepping up as a queen, setting both the tempo and the course of the game. Reluctantly, they are starting to recognize that sanctions might prove ineffective, that propaganda may no longer resonate, and that military threats could spark unity instead of fear. A new understanding is emerging. The age of unquestioned Western supremacy is not just waning, it is collapsing. The question now looms large. What path will the West choose? Will they adjust to a world with many centers of power, where Africa stands as an equal? Or will they cling to the fading remnants of their former empire? Will they embrace partnership instead of domination, respect instead of exploitation? Or will they stubbornly resist change, sinking deeper with every effort to hold on to control? The choices ahead will shape not only Africa's destiny, but that of the entire world. For the moment, Ouagadougou's streets rest under a blanket of night. This silence does not stem from fear. It is the hush that precedes a surge of progress. Freighters heavy with transformative equipment are already in transit. Across African capitals, agreements are being inked. Skilled workers stand ready to forge steel, sow seeds, lay railways, and weave new networks. And in a humble government office, Captain Ibrahim Traoré and his colleagues are putting the final touches on a strategy that may alter the continent's fate. To Western observers, the partnership between Burkina Faso and China might appear menacing. To Africans, it represents hope, a pledge that their future will not be shaped by outsiders who view the continent as a resource, a marketplace, or a military outpost. It is a vow that decisions made in African capitals will serve African people above all. It is a promise that the riches beneath African soil will first fulfill African aspirations, long before they fortify foreign fortunes. This is not the collapse of order, it is the awakening of justice. As this chapter unfolds, one certainty endures. The collective will of a people, united in purpose, surpasses any empire built upon exploitation. The West may attempt to alter the narrative, but now the pen is gripped by African hands, and the ink runs strong with the sureness of a continent reclaiming its story. Thus, the scene is set. In one corner stands France, a nation that for centuries dictated to Africa, now reduced to waiting, aware of the irony and the watching world. Opposite them stands Burkina Faso, whose farmers, merchants, and leaders have fought their way from the edges of the world economy to a place where they can say no and mean it. Recent days have seen negotiations in Ouagadougou continue well into the night. French representatives, eager to avoid returning empty-handed, have begun to accept compromises they once deemed impossible. They have provisionally agreed to complete the transaction entirely outside the CFA franc framework. They have acknowledged that 70% of all supply chain processes will be managed by companies based in Burkina Faso. They have even proposed funding a web of rural roads and refrigerated vehicles, infrastructure that will remain under Burkinabe control long after the deal is done. Yet, for Captain Traoré, these talks are about more than just striking a better bargain. This is about sending a signal to every farmer, every young person, and every African viewer. It is entirely possible to face the world on your own terms. The era of bowing to external pressure has come to an end. Dignity now outweighs any paycheck, regardless of how many zeros are on it. This message has already begun to echo far beyond the borders of Burkina Faso. On the avenues of Bamako, Conakry, Niamey, and Accra, market stalls and coffee houses have become places where people discuss this agreement as if it were a referendum on sovereignty for the continent itself. Agricultural unions stretching from Senegal to Tanzania are tracking every move, eager to adopt the Burkina Faso approach as a template for their own negotiations with buyers from abroad. The ripple effect is unmistakable. Throughout Africa, the balance of power in agriculture is shifting, one avocado at a time. Meanwhile, French news coverage has turned increasingly urgent. Early morning talk shows now debate whether Paris should swallow its pride and accept every single one of Troyes' terms, or be willing to lose the deal altogether. Economists warn that without Burkina Faso's avocados, retailers in France may have to pay up to 40% more to suppliers from South America, costs that will ultimately fall on French shoppers. What began as a quiet shortfall in agricultural supply has transformed into a political dilemma, one that could become very costly for French leaders if handled poorly. But in Ouagadougou, there is no sense of panic, only a composed, deliberate strategy. The government has made its stance clear. France is welcome to collaborate, but never at the expense of Burkina Faso's independence. Every single contract clause undergoes thorough examination. Each proposal is measured against long-term national interests. Here, the pace of negotiation is not the most important thing. Security and sovereignty take precedence. And then comes the final twist, one that few in Paris anticipated. Captain Traoré's administration has quietly begun parallel discussions with a consortium of buyers from the Middle East and East Asia. These buyers, impressed by Burkina Faso's agricultural transformations, are ready to match or even exceed France's offer of $100 million. The message could not be more direct. Burkina Faso is no longer a nation with only one path. It has options, and in options lies true power. Where once the West held sway over African agriculture through monopoly, by being the single gate through which goods could pass, Burkina Faso is now constructing a house with many doors. France is simply one guest among several. Whether they choose to enter with respect or linger outside with wounded pride is no longer Burkina Faso's concern. So, as this chapter draws to a close, one truth remains firm. The days when Africa had to plead for a seat at the table are finished. Burkina Faso now presides at the head of its own table, and tonight it is France, the former master, who stands at the doorstep seeking entry. Whether they are invited in or left on the threshold will depend entirely on how well they adapt to the new rules of engagement. Beneath the calm skies where avocados ripen in the West African sunlight, farmers are cultivating more than fruit. They are nurturing a new era, an age in which African prosperity serves its own people first, an age in which no nation, however mighty its past, can dictate another's future. And perhaps, when the story of this moment is recorded, it will not be recalled as the day Burkina Faso sold avocados to France, but as the day Burkina Faso showed France the true meaning of partnership. As reactions continue to arrive from every corner of the continent, one thing is unmistakably clear. Africa is demanding respect, sovereignty, and accountability. Was this merely a diplomatic blunder, or a sign of deeper shifts in global alliances? We will keep a close watch. If you found this report meaningful, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more straightforward, unfiltered African news. This is Talk of Africa 360, bringing you the stories that matter.